Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the WhatsOnStage Podcast. I'm Sarah Crompton and I'm really happy to be here today with Maria Friedman. It's the perfect day to be with her because Merrily We Roll Along, which is her film of the Stephen Sondheim musical, is released on Friday worldwide, cinemas everywhere. So that is very exciting, Maria. How do you feel about having, a multiplex release?
It's sort of pinch me moment. It really is a pinch me moment. I'm so thrilled. I'm so thrilled for Stephen Sondheim and George Firth. How can you be thrilled for people who aren't here anymore? But obviously he wanted his work and his ideas to go into the corners of the world. He didn't want it just, I mean, he's a theatre man essentially, but he really wanted as many people to see his work as possible. So this is an opportunity for that.
Yeah, and it is really nice because we were talking about it's quite rare still to get musicals into cinemas.
Mm.
This is obviously it's partly a live capture of the stage show that was on Broadway in 2023 to 24. Won 4 Tonys, amazing cast, Jonathan Groff, Daniel Radcliffe, Lindsay Mendez. It's a marvelous show, but you have filmed it in a different way. And the last time we were talking to your sister Sonia on this podcast, she said that you'd done amazing things. So I've been waiting to see it, and you have indeed done amazing things because you managed to have live capture and also close-ups. So how did you manage to do that, and why did you want to do that in terms of making this film?
So yes, the two-part question. So I
Sorry, yes.
the why is because obviously NT Live and think people do amazing jobs capturing and doing these pro shots as they're called. But I always have a kind of feeling of FOMO when I'm watching them. I don't feel I'm getting, I mean, it's wonderful. You get to go and see, you're getting as near as you can to seeing the real thing. But I always feel there's this energy that we have in a theatre that you can't capture on film. And it's this thing that happens between an audience and the cast. And there's a big distance between us. And so performances are pushed out, and we the performers ride on that energy, and you, the audience, get that energy from us. So it's a wonderful kind of sharing of a space. And we you cannot get that when you put a camera in and you get the long shot, the wide shot. There's as and because of that, when I was asked whether I would like to capture Merrily, I said no, I don't, because I feel it belongs in a theatre.
Right.
If you allow me to maybe just have an experiment and do what's in my head, I'd love to. And I was given the okay, which was huge risk for everyone involved, because I was not going to do the from the front in and capture it like this. So I started off interviewing for proper DOPs, and met Sam Levy, who's a genius, a 6'4" gentle giant who did Lady Bird and so many other things. I should have his CV here, but he's a proper filmmaker. And then an editor called Spencer Averick, who also he did it was, if they call it Master of the Air, I think it's called, that amazing, that Battle of Britain, an
Oh,
incredible
yes, I know. Yes.
editor. Anyway, interviewed lots of people, and the people I chose were the people who had kind of open hearts and didn't do the "I hate musicals" thing, which often there's this great divide between us all. But these two people, when I asked them what we were going to do or how we were going to do it, said, "Let's find out. Let's see. Let's go on this journey. We get what you're trying to say, that let's see how we can make that work." So we storyboarded, which is what you can't normally do. We spent a month. We got a kind of a big wide shot of the show, and we took it in literal seconds and milliseconds of the story. and the reaction shots. And because you don't have a set, so you're going to have to be really clever with where we go, how we go there, that we're moving decades. None of these things can be done. So I got then involved a brilliant graphics department called Mind Bomb, and we started working from the Paula Scher poster that she gave us so brilliantly for our show. We started using that as a kind of vibe for the dates and where we were. And then I used a color suite called Harbour, they do massive films, so that we could give each year a different flavor and a different taste to it. So everything is colored. Every face has 3 treatments on it. In every frame, we have a softener, a coloring, and a haliation, because I had to take away the stage lights, because stage lights come at you and bleach your face out and give you dark holes on camera for eyes. So I even had to do things like, at some stages in really, really important reaction shots, there were just 2 black pebbles for eyes, but maybe a tiny dot of white on that. And I had to go into the colorist, get that white, and then start painting the white back into the eye. So you've got the eye. So we were doing real film stuff with this thing.
It's amazing. It is amazing to hear that. And when you say you storyboarded, did you do a rough film and then actually literally make that film the storyboard and
Well,
use it almost shot by shot of how you could change it?
100% shot by shot. So so normally you just throw a load of cameras around the room and you just get what you can and then you edit. We had our edit points pretty in our heads. A little, we roughly knew how it was going to look. But what we did is use 4K cameras. This is probably quite technical, but with amazing zoom lenses. So we had just 2 in the middle of the auditorium and 2 right down at the front on either side of the pros. And the idea was we were always going to push past the pros. If you look at it, you never see the pros.
Yeah.
So we're in the action. But it obviously, because there's a lot of profile stuff, I then had only 9 hours, which ended up as 6 hours because we had to build out the set and build dollies and trucks, because I only had 6 hours to get my reverse shots.
So that's the reaction shots
no, that's the stuff that couldn't come from the front because
Right.
they're facing upstage or
Okay.
because they're looking directly at each other. So I had to find places where I knew I wasn't going to be able to get the reaction shot, and then I had to storyboard those. So we got maybe 12 moments that weren't filmed from the front live in the entire film. There were about 12 moments where I just knew I would not be able to pick up the stuff I want, which is the reaction shots. Because if you look at all great film and all great anything, it's how you are impacted by what's been said. And if you don't see the impact, then you can't actually build up that emotional journey. So a lot of the stuff that you see on the film, you'll see that it isn't the person speaking, but it's the person receiving the information. And that's how we were able to make it a film versus a capture, because on a capture, you're going to the person speaking. That's the way it's going to work that way. Mostly it's going to work that way.
Well, and of course, amazingly with this, not only speaking, but singing. So there is that sense. I mean, it is so immersive because you've got the reaction and you've got the music and you've got the song. So it is an extraordinary experience. And it really, especially the first scene, which is very full of movement and fast and a lot of reaction, because in a sense, it's the moment that you begin to realize that there's a story going to unfold here, and story unfolding backwards from success to beginning. It was really kind of thrilling, I think, to be there. How many days capture how many performances were you working?
Only three.
Wow.
And what we had is we had a caller. Her name's Janine. She does work for Saturday Live. So she's worked there for 30 years. And she also calls the Olympics, and she calls these things where you have to get the camera to be in the place it needs to be seconds before the person comes on. And so we were in the truck, and Janine just had her head down, and we had a script, and it would be camera 3, door 5, and go. Mid shot, Charlie, door 5 and go. And it was all before people arrived so that the cameras could find where they were going to be and then just go on as that thing. So we literally down to the last second, it was scripted, but we knew that we weren't, camera shots are particularly live. You might be edgy or you might go a bit soft. So when we got back into the studio and started to edit this together, there were some shots that kind of came in late or were wobbly along it. And my heart sort of because I thought, oh, this experiment, help, that different words came out of my mouth. And then we started realizing that actually that was our friend because sort of imperfection and edginess, particularly in that beginning scene where you've got 21 people on stage and it's and it's coke filled and it's toxic people. I realized the beauty of alienation, that you need to be really worried and the shots have to be really tight and fast in order for us to gently, as we get to know these characters, take longer and slower shots, spend more time. And when I first arrived, as I said, that I realized that this was going to be actually our friend and not our enemy, that the kind of the imperfection of it all. What I also realized is our biggest enemy was the wide shot,
Yeah.
because feet on a stage immediately tells everyone we're lying. We're not telling the truth. We're over here, and there are weird shoes, lovely shoes, but shoes on stage with lots of dots with markings on them, mics in their hair,
Yeah.
all these things. You're suddenly like, I don't believe you, and it takes you one step away. So I realized that the wide shot could only be locations. So as we see someone we need to see coming in, I can go wide. But the minute they're in, on, because otherwise we just lost all the energy. There was no energy. And all those dots, we went in and took every single one of them off in a studio.
Wow.
Every mic for the first 40 minutes is gone. So you are with the people. We're not on a stage. And I'm terribly proud of the collective energy that went into those details, because that was thousands of mic stops, because you don't just press a button and go get rid of the mic. It's frame by frame. So if they move, so that's like it's hours of tracking it. And then guess what? You take the mic off, but I put 3 things on everyone's face: the color, the haliation, and everything. Then suddenly they've got a big white dot there. You've got to fill that back in again. So all those things were why it's a film and not a capture. They're just, the detail has gone into, I was allowed to go into that detail.
And presumably, I mean, to be basic about this, it also is much more expensive than a capture because it has been made as a film. I mean, it's not going to cost the same as a Marvel movie, but presumably it has cost quite a lot to do. So it's a big um
Gamble.
sort of gamble, but also a kind of gift of faith at some levels that people think it does work.
Yeah, completely a thing. And yes, of course, it's much, much more expensive than that. I took 9 months of my life every day of the week doing it. And like anything, I don't think you see a director's print on it. I think the story shines. It sings out, because that's kind of where I live as a director. Is I don't want to have a big thumbprint on it. I want Steve's work to come out as clearly to an audience as I can possibly get. And that was my mission, and to do that. And I cannot tell you how grateful we did it. Of course, not knowing that we would sell it, but then the brilliant with Radical Media, who were so supportive, and Sam and Spencer, like, and of course the audio. Let me tell you about the audio.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting. I think it's really
Yeah,
interesting
it
if you're
is really
any
interesting.
way filmy geeky. But of course, I didn't know anything about this. But every mic is open, so you've got the orchestra, all their mics are open, and all the cast mics are open, and so you're picking up all the ambient sounds of footsteps and everything, and the audience is in everybody's mic. So when we came to put the audio onto the film, again, I was like, what are we going to do? So we had to go in and shut down every single mic till there was nothing, build back an ambient sound, and then build back up all that music and making sure that it was beautifully crafted so that when the horn comes in, you can hear it. When the clarinet can, in an auditorium, the guy is mixing it live, so we know, but that does not translate onto film. So and the audience were in everybody's mic. So it was basically the audience were it was like, so we had to take them out of everything and then find a way of putting them back in as another character. So they are a character in the piece. So
And
it was
that's
glorious work.
and that's all in post-production.
Everything,
God.
everything. Every
And did
shot
you
was
have to set up in the theatre differently, knowing you were, or did you just have the normal theatre
perfect.
set up for everything?
I mean, we went in a little bit with brilliant Jessica Krieger, who did amazing bit of lighting for us to try and take some of the glare away. But every shot is post because we had these great cameras. So we basically had mid shots for everything. And I then chose when to push in and then to lock it or whether to use the zoom or so that was all post. And I wanted as many edgy, different kind of shapes that we could find with what we had, which became like Steve, an enormous puzzle, a great game of trying to fit all these lovely pieces together. It was honestly 9 months of heaven because if you're working with great technicians and craftspeople and creatives like I was, I like at my age to be able to keep learning at that level of learning was yeah, I literally, it was the best thing I've ever done. I loved it so much.
That's so nice. That's so nice. I thought, having seen it on Broadway, I did think how wonderful it was that those particular performances were recorded
Mm,
because, I've seen it a lot. The show will come on to that, but I also thought it was so wonderful that what you got from those performances was a real sense of their friendship. And I always think it was the thing that elevated the I didn't see it off Broadway, but elevated that version of the show. And to have that in close up, to have that sort of unraveling in front of your eyes is wonderful, I think, because I do think their performances were some of the best I've ever seen in a live show.
I agree. And when you're watching that film, that's the live show.
Yeah,
We're not mucking about with it.
yeah.
That is what everybody got in that auditorium every single night. They are extraordinary. They're extraordinary performers. But everyone in that show, literally, I mean, I used to say in rehearsals that I don't believe in ensemble, chorus, anything. They're people that need to function in their own orbit and their own islands. And I said, you can't control an audience. They will look at you. You better be full and you better be on because you need to be interesting, everybody. And I'm very different to a lot of people because a lot of people keep everyone still behind action. I'm very keen that everyone is on and that we're focused enough that it's just lovely texture. So that when I want to look at you and I'm like, oh, she's amazing, she's interesting, she's gorgeous. Oh, I'll go back to that. That you're always captivated by what you're looking at, by people, by human beings. That's why we're on stage, by people and their internal workings is exciting to be a voyeur of. And I think that's everyone on that stage gave everything every day. They were the most surprised. I went to the premiere the night before, in New York, and the whole cast were there, and they could not believe themselves on screen. They were like, "I didn't know I did that. I didn't know I didn't know." It was like, "Yes, you did. You were that good every day." They were so thrilled.
Yeah, that's very exciting. I was at the Menier last night watching a different show, obviously, and I thought how far it has traveled. This your production of Merrily We Roll Along, which started the Menier in 2012, has come such a long way to be Broadway and now on this, big screen in this incredibly sophisticated way. What also struck me and what I really want to take you back to is right to the top, because the first time I saw you and Merrily was in Leicester.
You saw that?
I
Oh,
saw that in Leicester in 1992, which I fear
oh, I
ages us
love that.
both. But um, And we went in a minibus. I can't quite remember why. A group of us from Coventry went in a minibus. There must have been some kind of train strike or something because we didn't normally do this.
That's unusual for us.
I, and I do remember it. And I remember it. And we went because by that point, obviously, was the great lost Sondheim musical that people were talking about it in that context. And the idea that it had closed after only 16 performances. And we were all, and yet we'd all listened to the recording and thought, oh, it's quite good. And so we all came to see it. So what was it when you were doing it then? What was it like for you? It was Paul Kerrison directed it. What was that production like in Leicester?
Well, of course, I never saw it. I didn't know about the flop bit.
Right.
I just knew that Steve Sondheim came over to Britain as far away from the critics in New York as he could get, Leicester, and he chose a few of us to play these roles. When they came over, we didn't know at the time to rewrite it with us. So we're in there, and in they come, George Firth and Stephen Sondheim. I'd done Doc for in Sunday in the Park with George, so I mean, I knew he was going to come because he always comes to everything, but we didn't know he was going to come to rewrite, and that's what they came to do. And they rewrote on us. So can you imagine the joy of that? And the lack of pressure and the lack of build-up, because Steve became Steve. So, I mean, he was enormous and everybody loved him, but he had posterity in his own time. By the time he passed away, Stephen Sondheim was Stephen Sondheim. He was still somebody who had a few that had got away,
Yeah.
and I had met him in Sunday in the Park with George, which was incredible. So I already knew him, but what I got from that was that we laughed all through the rehearsals. He adored actors. He loved working with me because I got him. And so I remember when I started rehearsing, he hadn't come in yet, and the musical director was so reverential about him that if you get scores, and I want to pass that on to any singer, any director, anybody who works with Steve's work, is that he writes stuff for actors and he wants them to shine. So when you get the score and it's got the vocal line in a key, that is written around the person who sung it at the time. And quite often their little kind of funny little quirks and all that go into that score. So when I was singing Mary, I was singing it down there for this man.
Right.
I said, it's too low for me. He said, well, it's what's written. I said, but Steve won't want me to do it like that. And he was like, it's what's written. Anyway, he walked in. I was like, Charlie, why can't it be like? And Steve says, what's she doing? And he said, well, it's in the key. He said, you cast her, put it in her voice.
Yeah.
So don't feel too precious about keys, guys. Change them about. You're allowed to do that, and he would celebrate you doing that. So that's the key of Steve, is he wants to work with what's in front of him. And so I saw Merrily as a phenomenal piece. It was clearly all about Mary, because that's how I also want to act and direct, is that whatever part you're in, it's all about you. You're not the director. It's your job to push your character into as much as you can possibly get it, and let the director say, that's enough now, too much, or whatever. But your job is to fill that space. So when I got to direct it and I opened the script and realized it wasn't about Mary, it was a shock. Because it was actually clearly about Frank. I mean, clearly. And I think because I'd played Mary, I was able to see that really clearly. Like, oh, Mary is there in order to show how this man has lost his way. And I then looked at every road led back to Frank, every road. So I made Frank the protagonist, and this thing you saw didn't. The
Yes.
thing, and
No,
also,
it's true. And you've just answered one of the questions I've always had about the show, because I always feel it is all about Mary as well. And she is such a wonderful character, and she was wonderful when you played her. She's wonderful with Lindsay playing her. Um, she was wonderful when Jenna Russell played her in
It's
the
a
original.
wonderful part. It's a wonderful
Amazing
part.
part. But she doesn't have one big song. And I've always thought that's the kind of strange thing for me about Mary. She doesn't have her own internalized song because
Well, listen,
everything she sings is about Frank.
that's right. But not only that, it also is a brilliant character detail. She doesn't dare live. She can't quite live. So like it was is what she gets. And now you know the cynical side of something, a cynical side of a writer. Now you know life is crummy. Well, now you know she's been burnt, and she's somebody who's had enormous potential, but due to addiction, her life is kind of clipped, and she lives off crumbs. And I think it's really interesting because she's living off crumbs as both the person in the show and the performer has to grab onto oxygen through somebody else, which is, I think, a brilliant. And we do find out about her. We find out enough about her in Opening Doors. We know she's got parents. We know she has serious love affairs, wrong ones, bad ones, and it's all there. But all roads lead back to Frank. Franklin Shepherding is a love song. It's a duet. It's
Yeah.
about they're missing the friendship with Frank. And the other thing that is always very difficult is people think of it as a showbiz story. It's got nothing to do with showbiz. You could make them anything. The point is it's about taking responsibility for the things you do and understanding how to love properly, and also that you can reset, that you can make all these mistakes in life. We meet them at 40. Life's only half there. You know that it's all okay. It's all right. It's
Yeah.
going to be okay.
It's really interesting that. When you were working in Leicester, what were the things that he was Stephen and George were trying to fix? What were the things that they were really addressing, or that you gradually realized that they were really addressing?
That certainly the beginning, the Hills of Tomorrow versus that Frank, they were trying to really really let you know, not spoon feed you the end, so which I think is really really important, that you have to go on that journey. If you see a man talking to children, it's sort of almost, it's patronizing in a way. You're sort of you're explaining to people, oh, this is the way the story is going to turn out. It's much better for you to decide to hook onto the characters, come to the end, and realize that you are also in that story as well as observing them. So I think that was one thing. I mean, I wasn't part to their actual conversations. I know that Steve said to me, we became really good friends during that period because we were obviously in Leicester and miles away from anywhere. That's where our friendship really started. But I remember him saying to me at the end of our first preview, he said, Maria, be careful. This part comes too easily to you. And I just thought that was an amazing, because, you know, she's an alcoholic. I'm not, by the way, and she's very volatile and she loves too easily. But the beginning scene is really, really terrible with her screaming and shouting around a party. And I loved playing that, but the reason it came easily to me is I had a godmother who was that woman. And I realized how terrifying alcoholism can be when it is let off the leash publicly. But because I was able at 20, I can't remember how old I was, at the early 30s or something,
Yeah.
something like that. You know, he was like, you're scary. You're really scary. But I was like, Steve, it's acting. But I have to say, there's been times, you know, when you want to have that extra drink, and I've always heard Steve in my head, that comes too easily to you. Careful.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Good bit of good bit of advice. What was his reaction when you put it on at the Menier? Because that's really the start of this journey with the show, where you decide to do it. You decide it's your first directorial attempt, and you do put Frank at the center and start to shape it around him in that way.
Yeah, he was
So is
thrilled.
Steve involved? Is he? How much is he involved at that point? How much does he come in?
I tried to make him involved, but he just said, "No, go just do it yourself. And if I don't like it, trust me, you'll know." And that was the wonderful thing about him. He wanted people to interpret what he'd done, and what have you got to say about it?
Mhm.
So when he came on the first preview, he just lay down in between and sobbed, sobbed. He was sobbing, and he cancelled what they were doing the next night and came again. They were going to go and see something else. Came again, and then he was with his husband Jeff Romley, who's now his widow, but he wasn't married then. And Jeff Romley, at that point, decided one day this production was going to go to Broadway. That at that point, and it took ages to do, but Jeff Romley was part of the producing team, and he was definitely instrumental in how we ended up on Broadway. Yeah.
Why did it take so long? Because that production was really good. As I say, I saw that. I saw the West End transfer as well. And you had a sense that whatever problems there had been in the show had been solved.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
had great coherence. I remember it getting great reviews. And then it does. I
Yeah.
sort of thought it had gone, because that's a lot.
Me
2005.
too, 100%. I mean, we won everything that you could possibly win, and at that time was the most five-star reviewed show in West End history. So it like we were like, that's it. Um, but the awful thing about rights is people hold them. We didn't have the rights to
Right.
go anywhere with it, and other people had them. And another three productions came and went before the rights became available again, because it just had a holding grid. Everyone thought and because it was only in the Chocolate Factory and then very short run in the West End, not that many people saw it, so they all felt they were going to fix this show, and it just kept happening.
Yeah, so it was the first moment you could actually do it then, really, is when you put it on.
Correct. Correct. And Steve was a real believer. We made a film with Jenna and Mark that went everywhere, again in New York. And Steve said to me, there was one point where we might have come in, but there was another company called Fiasco, which were a group of really young people that had come from a university. And he just said, "Look, Marie, I really I want to support this small group of people in their mission to get this on." And so, what it's really taught me is trust the process, because I know it seems like epic. People all think that's all I've been doing for 15 years, which is slightly irritating. Because I actually, in between all these huge years and years of it not being there, I was doing many other things. But when it comes back up again, it came back up again because of Boston. And Boston, the Huntington Theatre, we're going to do a whole year of everything he'd ever written. I think actually over 5 years. And they wanted to get seminal productions. And they came and asked me, and I was like, brilliant. I'd love to do it again. But that was like quite a few years after we'd done it. But I said on condition that Mark and Damien and Jenna could come, and Jenna was busy, so she couldn't come. But they all flew over. So we did it with Mark and Damien. And then that production was earmarked to come in. But you know what the bottom line is on Broadway? That they just are like, we don't know. Merrily has never made any money. We're too afraid. So let's just put a pause on it. And then it came back up again through Steve and Jeff Romley and Patrick Catullo came and said to Sonia, let's do this production. And then Daniel came on board, and then that was it. We were off.
And he does make a huge difference, because I was thinking, I mean, Jonathan, I think really has become a star almost in the
Yes,
process of it. I think,
yes, he has.
people knew him and recognized his quality, but he has become a star because of Merrily. Lindsay Mendez, just amazing already. And again, the same thing slightly happened. But there is no doubt that in terms of wide reach, it has been Daniel Radcliffe playing that part. And it will be the same with the film, isn't it? It's quite exciting, the idea that people who like Daniel Radcliffe will go and see a film by Stephen Sondheim.
It's so fantastic, and they're not going to be disappointed. I mean, my fear, I wanted to alienate the audience in the theatre, in our first few scenes, because I want them to think, oh, this is a musical, get their chocolates and popcorn out, and they go, what's going on? There's this terrible group of people that you do not want, Succession-like kind of people that you do not want to spend your time with, who are behaving so badly. And then we fall in love with them. I mean, it's an incredible thing. So in the film, I thought I want to go there, but we've got to trap them. And Daniel doesn't come on for the first 15 minutes or 12 minutes. So I want people to stay and then just go, oh, and then he comes on and he does this firework performance in the first sort of 15 minutes of the piece. But it's terrifying to kind of go down that road, knowing that people are coming to see Daniel, and then they're going to go, what am I watching? And I just encourage everyone just to stay with it, because it gets gentler and gentler and loving and funny and sweet. And Daniel is a miracle in it. He's a miracle.
Yeah, he's marvelous. He is. They all are. How do
Yeah.
you feel now? Because this is an end of, I mean, it
It
is
is.
the end of a cycle.
It is.
So how do you feel leaving your Merrily years?
I said that literally before I got on the Zoom to you. I was just talking to my husband, and I just said it feels like we've got the premiere today in the West End at the Curzon, um, over here, and I had the premiere over there, and I I feel I feel ready. I feel ready to let it go, but I do have a sort of sadness, because it's kept me so occupied and um, dazzled by Steve for so long, and I've never once, not once, been bored with it. And I've lived with this since I was 30, on and off, and it changes, it morphs, you grow with it as you change. When I'm going through a difficult time in my life, it's almost impossible to watch. And when I'm feeling good about myself, I'm like, it's amazing and joyous. It hits you over and over again in a different way. And I'm looking for something that's going to fill me up like that, because I'm not sure you get it more than a few times in your life to work on a masterpiece. That's what I've been doing. I've been working on a masterpiece that I will miss. And more importantly, Steve sort of has never left me, because I've always been with him. And I think I I began to grieve him as I put the full stop when I locked the film. I began missing him in a way that was really a bit too much. So I think I've got some big tears to shed over my friend that I've kept at bay, really.
I mean, there is that, sorry, because you do feel, I mean, it's a bit like Tom Stoppard having died this week. You feel this loss of these huge cultural figures who are so important. And if you care, even if you didn't know them, I mean, I had passing acquaintance with both Stephen Sondheim and Tom Stoppard, but I didn't know them in any way. And I know many people like you who knew them deeply and dearly. But there is that hole. And
Mm.
but there is something marvelous about the work being there. I'm sorry that he isn't, around to say, gosh, that's a good film, Maria. But it also feels really nice that it is there for other people to discover, because that's what culture is, isn't it? It's that kind of passing on of things that you're excited
100%.
about.
Yeah, 100%. That you've articulated it beautifully. But I feel diminished, because when you spend time with people, people say don't meet your heroes. Not the case when you become close to those great thinkers that are bigger, more extraordinary in terms of their curiosity. There's an energy behind these people, even if they're just sitting still in a room, because they listen in a different way. They're receiving things in a different way. And I just find that when I have dinner or speak to him or go for a walk with him around London, I think the questions he asked You had to be on, you had to turn up, you had to show up for these people because they saw you in Technicolor. They liked you because they saw you, and therefore you felt sort of enlivened, enriched by knowing them in a way that, of course, when you're doing their work, but anyone can do their work, anyone can interpret their work, but not everyone could walk through the park or share something that you'd get the most. The thing with Steve is he had loyalty drilled down into the center of his DNA, very much because we both had childhoods which were, you know, sort of difficult, and we needed people that saw us and loved us and held us. So when you were held by someone like him, it felt remarkable. It felt remarkable. So I know the work goes on, but that belongs to everyone, which is the right thing, which is the right thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lost a friend. That's the truth. I lost a friend of 40 years who changed my life in every way. The house I'm in, I could afford because I worked on his shows. The friends I meet still today when I go to New York are people he introduced me to. So he opened doors to a girl who, lives in Hackney, that just were not even feasible by when I first met him, throwing me a party in his house and in making sure that people said, "This is my friend, this is my friend." That sounds pathetic, but in terms of the fact that meant a great deal to me. But it's not that they were the rich and famous, they were the interested and quizzical. So my friends in New York are people who think and talk through the night and enjoy great food. And so I still have them and we still talk, about him. But yeah, he gave me my life. He gave me most of why I do what I do. Taught me. He's a great teacher. That's what he was.
And we do all benefit from that friendship, because when you say anybody can do sometime, anybody can do the work, that is true. But it is a great gift that you have given everybody by using your knowledge and using your friendship and using your insight to preserve and recover and develop this show. And I do think, there are very few shows that go from flop to hit, and that journey of Merrily, which you have been so much part of, I think is, wonderful. And I'm very grateful to you because I always did like it as a show. I'm really glad that it's now seen. And you're right, it's one of the great emotional shows about being alive, isn't it? It's one of the great
It's,
shows about being human. It's not about showbiz, it is about people.
I think it's the greatest. And I honestly do not know another show. And I've been thinking and thinking and thinking where you're both in it. There's a brilliant device he uses, and he didn't do it self-consciously, which is he brings the audience. So this was my conceit, is that we look down the lens of the camera, or we look to you, right down your eyes, and ask you this question: how did you get to be here? How did you? And I think that now, how am I sitting talking to Sarah with her gorgeous bookshelves in the background, sitting with my family coming in, the dog barking and everything? How did I get to be here?
Mm.
And it's a really important question about the good and the bad times in life, not just how did I get to be here on Broadway? How did I get to make this terrible mistake in my life? How did I, why is this my script today? This is not the one I wanted. I wanted this script. How do I walk from here to here to find your dreams? And this show continually asks you that. And then it gives you these characters who are fallible, like we all are, who make terrible mistakes, like we all do, who also have aspirations to wonderful things, like we all do. And it just continues to remind you we're a little bit of Charlie, a little bit of Frank, a little bit of Mary, a little bit of Beth, we're a little bit of all these people. Push them all together, you have a whole, which is a life that stretches over 20 years, which is how long I've been working on this. I mean, a little bit over that. And so you're constantly, people who see this over and over again, which you have to do, by the way. It's not a one-off. It's like all great things. All why is Shakespeare done over again? Universal ideas that will capture you at a point in your life that make you feel less alone and more human. That's what this piece does. And it doesn't, I don't know any other show where you're watching it, but you're suddenly in it. You are in it. And I can't, and the genius of it going backwards. So you're watching the mistakes like a thriller, like a gathering these kind of clues, but you're getting them backwards and they can't do anything about it. No, don't go down that road because oh, you already have. It's just delicious in um, its sort of undoing of you by the end. You're just undone.
Yeah.
And you don't even know it's coming. You don't even know it's coming. You're sort of thinking, oh, this is great, this is great. And suddenly you're awash. And if you go with it, and I want to urge everyone to go with it when you're watching it, give a bit because you get a bit. The thing about Steve, you're not sitting back, you have to sit forward to listen. You have to be on in order to get the clues, to get those moments. And if you laugh out loud and you want to clap in the cinema, because I went to see it in LA at the Chinese theatre, one of the great moments of my life, standing at the back of a full cinema with everybody who'd bought tickets, clapping, laughing, cheering, crying. I was like, Steve's in this room now. He's here with me. It was incredible. But don't feel like you have to be quiet. Clap, cheer. Feel like you can react. It will feed you back.
Thank you. And that's great. Thank you so much.